there comes a moment when the version of you they took for granted no longer exists. A moment when you stop picking up on the first ring, stop rescuing them emotionally, stop rearranging your world so they can keep theirs intact. A moment when you stop offering unlimited access to your time, your attention, your emotional bandwidth. And the second you do that, they feel it. Not later, not eventually, not one day, immediately. Because nothing wakes a person up faster than losing privileges they assumed they'd always have. This is where everything shifts. Not because you're punishing them, not because you're playing games, not because you're manipulating anything, but because you've finally realized your energy is valuable, your presence is powerful, your heart is not public property. And when you stop giving yourself away, like there's an endless supply, they start to see what you were worth the entire time. This is where your power begins. Let's go deeper. You didn't wake up one morning and decide to pull back. It wasn't a strategy. It wasn't a plan. It wasn't some cold, calculated shift. It was exhaustion, the kind of exhaustion that comes from giving and giving and giving while someone else takes, without ever noticing how much of you they're consuming. You reached that point where your soul whispered, "This is too much." And for once, you listened, because emotional overextension doesn't happen in a single moment. It builds slowly, silently, quietly, behind the scenes. It builds. Each time you respond instantly, even when you're tired. Each time you show up, even when they never ask how you're doing. Each time you make them a priority, while they make you an option. Each time you accept breadcrumbs. Because you didn't pull back. Because you stopped caring. You pulled back because caring alone was no longer enough to sustain the connection. People who have unlimited access to you get comfortable, not intentionally, not maliciously, but comfortably, dangerously comfortably. They assume you'll always be available. They assume you'll always forgive. They assume you'll always understand. They assume you'll always show up, no matter how little they invest. Your consistency becomes invisible. Your kindness becomes expected. Your emotional availability becomes something they think they're entitled to. And then one day, you shift, not dramatically, not aggressively, not angrily, but naturally. You stop replying instantly. You stop explaining yourself in paragraphs while they respond in sentences. You stop rearranging your schedule to fit into theirs. You stop waiting for their effort to match yours. You simply return to yourself. And that's the moment people panic. Because your absence, the lack of your energy, your attention, your emotional warmth, creates a void they didn't expect. Your silence doesn't mean indifference. It means recalibration. Your pullback doesn't mean rejection. It means self-respect. Your distance isn't punishment. It's clarity. And clarity is felt deeply. People don't value you when you give endlessly. They value you when they realize the access they once had is no longer guaranteed. When you stop giving unlimited access, you force them to meet you at the level you should have been met at from the beginning. It's not about withholding. It's about balancing. It's not about playing hard to get. It's about honoring your worth. It's not about manipulating. It's about matching effort instead of overextending. And here's the irony. They didn't notice your presence until you gave them a taste of your absence. Because for the first time, they feel something they haven't felt with you before. Uncertainty, not about you, but about their own place in your life. For the first time, they miss your warmth. They miss your availability. They miss your attention. They miss your emotional investment. not because you disappeared, but because you stopped pouring into a cup with a hole in the bottom. And suddenly, they feel the imbalance you've been feeling for months. Because when someone who gives deeply decides to give less, it isn't less. It's noticeable. It's impactful. It's loud. Your pullback speaks a language their ego can't ignore. It says, I'm not here to be used. I'm not here to fill your voids. I'm not here to prove my worth. I deserve effort, consistency, reciprocity. And here's the part they never see coming. You pulling back forces them to confront who they are. Without the version of you who did everything, it exposes what they didn't give, what they didn't appreciate, what they didn't protect, what they didn't reciprocate. They start replaying moments. They start analyzing your tone. They start feeling anxious when they used to feel confident. They start noticing every small shift in your behavior because losing you isn't loud. It's slow, gradual, subtle, but undeniably powerful. And it begins the moment you stop offering yourself on a silver platter. You're not being distant. You're being discerning. You're not being cold. You're being careful. You're not being unavailable. You're being selective. When you stop giving unlimited access, you don't become harder to love. You become harder to misuse. And that is when they finally see your value. But let's go deeper, because the real shift happens in the psychology behind it. When you stop giving someone unlimited access to you, something shifts, not in a small way, not in a dramatic, loud, movie scene way, but in a quiet, internal, almost unsettling way. Because people don't notice your value when you're always available. They notice it when your absence exposes what your presence was providing. And that's what's happening now. Your silence, your boundaries, you're choosing yourself. It's creating a space they can't pretend not to feel. Because before, you were always there, responding first, fixing everything, soothing every insecurity, carrying the connection, showing up even when they didn't, loving them past their inconsistencies. You didn't mean to make it easy. You just cared. But caring without boundaries turns love into convenience. And they treated you like you'd always be there. But the moment you stopped giving them 24/7 access to your energy, their entire emotional system woke up. Not in a comfortable way, not in a way they can admit, but in a way that hit them, right where their ego thought it was safe. Because unlimited access makes people feel entitled, not appreciative. Your presence felt like water, always flowing, always giving, always available. Your attention felt like sunlight, always warm, always comforting, always accessible. Your heart felt like home, always open, always welcoming, always forgiving. But home stopped feeling special when someone thinks the door can never close. And that's what they believed. They thought they could come and go, disappear and reappear, give you half and still receive whole, offer little and still collect everything. They thought they had time. They thought you'd wait. They thought your patience was permanent. But then it happened. You pulled your energy back, not with anger, not with revenge, not with manipulation, but with clarity, with healing, with self-respect, with a calm certainty that said, I deserve reciprocity, not crumbs, not maybes, not emotional leftovers. And that's when they felt it. The absence, the shift, the weight of what they never valued. You see, most people don't realize what you were giving them until they're forced to live without it. Most don't understand the comfort of consistency until it disappears. And most don't notice the difference between someone who likes them and someone who actually cares until the caring stops. Your energy was rare. Your presence was stabilizing. Your emotional depth was grounding. They didn't just lose access to you. They lost access to a version of themselves. They could only be around you. Because when you were giving freely, they felt chosen, desired, safe, admired, and they mistook that safety for something that existed naturally within them. But it didn't. It existed because you poured into them. And now, without your reassurance, their confidence feels shaky. Without your steady love, their emotions feel unregulated. Without your soft energy, their world feels colder. Without your patience, their patterns feel exposed. Without your presence, their distractions don't work the same. They thought your attention was a default. Now they realize it was a gift. They thought your support was automatic. Now they feel the emptiness of losing it. They thought your emotional generosity was effortless. Now they understand how much you were carrying, and the truth hits them slowly, quietly, internally. You weren't convenient. You were valuable. You weren't easy. You were rare. You weren't replaceable. You were irreplaceable long before they noticed. People don't change when you explain your worth. They change when they feel the absence of taking you for granted. That's what your distance is doing now. Your silence is mirroring their behavior. Your boundaries are revealing their inconsistencies. Your detachment is highlighting their emotional gaps. You're not punishing them. You're rebalancing the connection. And in that rebalancing, they're finally seeing the imbalance. They're realizing how much you initiated, how much you held, how much you understood, how much you softened, how much you offered without being asked, how much you stayed even when it hurt. This creates a reaction, a psychological shift they weren't prepared for. Because when you stop giving unlimited access, they notice your absence. Before they can admit it, they miss your presence. Before they can say it, they feel the distance. Before they understand the reason, they start replaying old messages, old moments, old memories, trying to figure out when the energy changed. But the truth is simple. It changed the moment you stopped abandoning yourself to stay connected to them. Your worth didn't increase. They just finally lost the distraction that kept them from seeing it. Now they're thinking. Now they're questioning. Now they're comparing every interaction to the presence you used to give. Other people don't feel like you. Other conversations don't comfort like you. Other energies don't reach them like you. No matter where they go, they keep bumping into the realization. You were the one who made everything feel easier. But here's the part that stings them deeply. Now they don't have unlimited access to come back and take from you the way they once did. They feel the door isn't wide open anymore. They feel the access point shrinking. They feel your energy retreating. They feel themselves losing influence. And it scares them because they thought the connection ran on their timing. Now they see it survived because of your effort. And that realization hits harder than any silence ever could. They're not just missing you, they're missing the way they felt when your love was still accessible. And the moment they realize they can't treat you the same, the moment they see you're not waiting, is the moment they finally value you in the way they should have from the beginning. When you stop giving them unlimited access, something shifts inside them that they did not expect. Because before, your energy was a guarantee. Your time was predictable. Your presence was assumed. They didn't have to earn you. They didn't have to show up fully. They didn't have to try. You made it too easy for someone who wasn't ready to understand the weight of what they were holding. And this is what happens when a person receives constant emotional access but offers inconsistency in return. They burn through your kindness like it has no cost. They treat your patience like it regenerates endlessly. They accept your availability without ever stopping to consider how rare that level of dedication is. But when you pull back, not out of spite, not out of manipulation, but out of self-respect, the emotional landscape changes. Because now, they feel something they haven't felt in a long time. Contrast. No more instant replies. No more dropping everything to soothe their anxiety or walk them through their confusion. No more filling the silence they created. No more carrying the connection on your back. For the first time, they feel the absence of what used to be constant. And that absence has a weight of its own. People never realize how much space you held for them until they have to stand in that space alone. They notice it in ways they can't admit out loud. They check their phone more often. They reread old messages. They wonder what you're doing. They feel a sting they don't want to name because deep down, they know the truth. Your absence is revealing their effort or lack of it, and that's the part they don't know how to handle. See, when someone has unlimited access to you, they don't have to rise. They don't have to step into their heart. They don't have to become better. They can stay passive because you were active. They can stay distant because you were present. They can stay comfortable because you made all the moves. But when you stop, when the flow stops, when the access stops, their comfort breaks, their illusion shatters, their reality catches up. Suddenly, they're forced to reflect. They ask themselves, why aren't they texting first? Why aren't they checking in? Why does it feel different now? Did I push too far? Are they done with me? And that's when the truth starts sinking in. You weren't clingy. You weren't too much. You weren't asking for too much effort. You were simply present in a way they weren't ready to value. But now your silence exposes the imbalance. Your distance highlights their lack of investment. Your boundaries shine a spotlight on the effort they never gave. And here's what makes them panic. Before, they believed your consistency meant permanence. They believed you'd always be there, always reach out, always care enough. For both of you, they relied on the version of you who made everything easy, but they didn't realize how fragile access truly is until they no longer had it freely. They feel the difference. They notice the change. Their heart tightens in ways they don't want to admit because losing access to you doesn't feel like losing attention. It feels like losing safety. You weren't just someone who cared. You were someone who made them feel seen in a way they weren't used to. And now that you've pulled back, they're left alone with all the emotions you used to help them regulate. They feel the weight of your absence in every quiet moment. And deep inside, they begin to understand unlimited access to you was a blessing they weren't prepared to honor. Now they either rise to meet you or they fall away because they never intended to grow in the first place. Your distance reveals their truth. Your boundaries reveal their intentions. Your silence reveals their feelings. Because when someone truly cares, your shift will shift them. The third wave is longing. I miss how things felt with them. But the fourth wave, the one that comes after silence, after self-reflection, after they sit with the emptiness you left, that's the one that changes everything. I didn't appreciate them when they were giving me access. And now, I don't know how to get that version of them back. They don't realize what they had until they lose the version of you who gave endlessly, instantly, unquestioningly. And you didn't punish them. You didn't teach them a lesson. You didn't play games. You simply stopped. handing out pieces of yourself to someone who wasn't protecting them. And that shift, that quiet, steady shift, changes everything. Because when you stop giving unlimited access to someone who took you for granted, their entire world gets rearranged. Not because you became colder, not because you became distant, but because for the first time, they're forced to see what your presence was doing for their life. Your availability was their comfort. Your energy was their emotional safety net. Your presence was their stabilizer, the thing they leaned on, without even noticing how much weight they were placing there. But here's the thing: people don't appreciate the structure that holds them together until it stops holding. People don't appreciate the light that warms them until it stops shining. People don't appreciate the one who shows up to love them until that love isn't free anymore. And that's exactly what your shift did. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't manipulation. It wasn't some strategy to make them miss you. It was alignment. It was balance. It was you finally matching their effort instead of overextending yours. And that is the moment everything begins to change. Because when you stop giving unlimited access, a person experiences something they never expected: the consequences of their own behavior. Suddenly, you're not responding right away. You're not always available. You're not waiting. You're not prioritizing someone who never prioritized you. And it creates a silence in their life they don't know how to sit with. Because you weren't just someone they talked to. You were someone who made things feel lighter. You were someone who grounded them, even when they didn't admit it. You were someone whose presence shaped their emotional rhythm. And now, they feel the gaps, the interruptions, the emotional static, where connection used to live. They start to notice the ways you made their life easier, the ways you brought calm to their chaos, the ways you softened their sharpest parts. And more importantly, they notice what happens when those things disappear. Because the truth is, you weren't too much. You were simply giving too much to someone who wasn't ready to match it. But when you stop giving freely, they finally see that what you were offering wasn't ordinary. It was rare. It was stabilizing. It was nourishing in ways they didn't have the emotional maturity to acknowledge. And that realization hits people in waves. The first wave is confusion. Why does everything feel different with them? The second wave is discomfort. Why do I feel unsettled, irritated, distracted? The third wave is longing. I miss how things felt with them. But the fourth wave, the one that comes after silence, after self-reflection, after they sit with the emptiness you left, that's the one that changes everything. I didn't appreciate them when they were giving me access. And now, I don't know how to get that version of them back. Because here is a truth most people don't understand. Love isn't lost when you walk away. Love is lost when the person realizes they no longer have access to the part of you that loved them. And that is the part they start craving most. Not your physical presence, not your attention, not your replies, but the version of you who poured gently, thoughtfully, intentionally, without hesitation. Once that part goes quiet, something inside them wakes up. They start replaying moments they dismissed. They remember kindness they overlooked. They rethink conversations they brushed off. They reconsider choices they made recklessly. And they begin to understand, slowly, and sometimes painfully, that your presence wasn't accidental. It was a gift they didn't know how to hold, a gift they didn't know how to value, a gift they didn't know they'd eventually miss. And the irony? They always thought you'd stay the same. They thought your heart was limitless. Your giving was endless. Your patience was eternal. They didn't think twice about taking more than they were offering. But people change when they realize your heart is not a guarantee. Your energy is not a guarantee. Your access is not a guarantee. And that your shift, forces them to meet themselves. Because now they're faced with the truth. If they want access to you, they have to earn it. If they want connection with you, they have to show up. If they want to be close to you, they have to choose it with consistency and intention, not convenience, not habit, not comfort, real effort. And that is where people either rise or fall away. Some step up because they finally understand what losing your access means. Others disappear because they were only there for the version of you who didn't ask for anything back. And you don't chase either outcome because when you stop giving unlimited access, you stop basing your worth on someone else's ability to recognize it. Your value doesn't decrease. When you give less, it becomes clearer, it becomes sharper, it becomes undeniable. Not because you changed, but because you stopped overcompensating for people who were offering you the bare minimum. And here's the final truth. They eventually realize you weren't asking for too much. You were asking for the same level of care you were giving. And when you stop giving all that care unconditionally, they finally see what you were worth. Because absence reveals value in a way presence never could. And the moment they feel that shift inside themselves, that ache, that pull, that slow understanding, they realize they didn't lose you when you walked away. They lost you when they assumed you'd never stop giving. And now they wish they had shown up sooner, loved you better, matched your effort, protected your heart, held the relationship with the same care you once offered them. But you're no longer bending. You're choosing differently. You're giving intentionally. You're protecting your energy the same way you protected everyone else. And that is when they start to value you, not because you demanded it, not because you begged for it, but because you finally did the one thing they never expected. You stopped giving unlimited access. You reach a point where your soul finally whispers, I'm done giving more than I receive. And that moment doesn't come from bitterness. It comes from awakening, clarity, self-respect, rearranging itself inside you. Because when you stop giving unlimited access, you don't become cold. You become clear. You stop answering instantly. You stop rearranging your life around someone who never once rearranged theirs for you. You stop apologizing for wanting the same effort you've always given, and something shifts inside them. Not because you manipulated them, not because you punished them, not because you played games, but because for the first time in a long time, they finally feel the weight of your absence, not the absence of your presence, but the absence of your overgiving. Because you didn't just give love, you gave reassurance, you gave comfort, you gave emotional stability, you gave a place for them to land. When the world felt too heavy, you made it easy for them to live casually while you loved intentionally. But access was never meant to be unlimited. People value what they have to reach for, not what sits waiting on the shelf, with the door always open. And when you decide you're done being the shelf, done being the person who gives without limit, that's when they feel it deeply. Suddenly, your silence isn't empty. It's powerful. It's grounding. It's full of messages you never needed to speak aloud. They start to notice how much space you once filled, the good morning texts they used to skim over, The affection they once brushed aside, the consistency they quietly depended on, the emotional presence they took for granted. It all becomes noticeable the moment it's no longer there, because people realize your worth, not when you're giving, but when you stop giving. What they assumed would always be available. They replay your softness, your patience, your effort, your loyalty, your emotional support, all the things that felt normal until they disappeared. And here is the truth. You may not have heard enough. You were never asking for too much. You were asking the wrong person. You weren't difficult. You weren't demanding. You weren't overwhelming. You were simply someone who loved with intention in a world where many people love with convenience. And now that you've stepped back, not to punish, not to manipulate, but simply to protect your peace, they feel something they didn't expect: accountability. Because when you stop giving unlimited access, you stop enabling their emotional laziness. You stop cushioning their lack of effort. You stop allowing them to give the bare minimum without consequences. And that's when they finally face what you were offering this entire time: a connection that required maturity, presence, effort, emotional honesty, actual participation. And for some people, that realization hits harder than heartbreak, because now they can't unsee what you were, who you were, how much you gave. Now they understand. You were not replaceable, not recreatable, not something they could replicate with the next person, or the next distraction, or the next temporary connection. Because people don't miss what you gave them, they miss who they were able to be, because you were in their life. Your presence made them softer. Your energy made them kinder. Your love made them braver. Your effort made them feel chosen. And when you remove that, they don't just feel the loss, they feel the difference. The conversations are not as meaningful. The connection is not as deep. The attention is not as genuine. The comfort is not as effortless. Because what they find out is what you always knew: not every connection is built with soul. Some are built with convenience, and yours was built with intention. You did not love lightly. You did not show up halfway. You did not give from a place of fear. You gave because your heart was honest. And now, when you stop giving unlimited access, your heart doesn't shrink. It becomes sacred. You start loving with boundaries, with standards, with awareness, with discernment. You start offering your energy to people who match it, not people who drain it. You start giving your time to those who value it, not those who consume it. You start moving like someone who finally understands their own worth. And that is why they feel it. Because you aren't angry. You aren't spiteful. You aren't vengeful. You're evolved. You stopped fighting for a place in someone's life who wasn't willing to meet you halfway. You stopped pouring into someone who only held half a cup. You stopped showing up for someone who never truly showed up for you. And here's the plot twist: your absence teaches them more than your presence ever did. Your boundaries teach them more than your forgiveness ever could. Your growth teaches them more than your love ever reached. Because losing the version of you that once overgave is the wake-up call most people don't see coming. And now, they understand something they never thought about before. Access to you was a privilege, not a guarantee, not a right, a privilege. And privileges are earned, not handed out endlessly. So as you step into this new place, where your value is clear, your energy is guarded, and your heart is no longer wide open for the undeserving, remember this: the right person will never need unlimited access to recognize your worth. They will see it in every moment you share with them. They will match your effort. They will show up consistently. They will give back what you give naturally, and they will make sure you never feel like you're giving alone again, because someone who truly values you won't wait for you to stop giving before they finally show up. They'll show up because they want to, because they care to, because they feel lucky to be loved by you at all. And if you're still here, listening to this, I want you to hear this clearly. Your love is not common. Your depth is not ordinary. Your loyalty is not typical. Your effort is not replaceable. Stop treating your heart like it's something anyone should have access to. It's not. It's sacred, rare, powerful. And the moment you truly understand that, your whole life changes. If this spoke to you, if it made something inside you exhale, take a moment, breathe, and trust yourself a little more. And if you want more content that protects your heart, reminds you of your worth, and keeps you walking toward the love you deserve, make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you stay, because I'm not done helping you yet.